first and foremost, thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar, Why Cloud-Based Output Management is the Future. Today's session is all about how IT teams can simplify and modernize their print infrastructure with a cloud-first approach. I am Shannon Voice, Customer Marketing Manager here at Vasion. I will be your moderator and look forward to working with all of you. We have some fantastic speakers today, individuals that I've worked with for, well, quite some time here at Vasion and worked with them personally and digitally. I'm very excited to introduce them. So first up, Bailey Miller, she's our solutions engineer. She's going to walk us through why cloud-based output management matters. And she's also going to give us a little demo of Vasion Output. So very excited for that. Kevin Hill, he is one of our account executives here at Vasion, and he works very closely with our organizations who are looking to solve very complex printing challenges. And he's got a lot of experience in that. Definitely looking forward to hearing from him. And finally, Gabby Luna, she is one of our customer success managers, and I might add a bright star anytime I get to run into her in the office. She will be sharing migration success stories and how customers are using Vasion Output to streamline their operations. Just as a quick note, obviously, many of you have already found the Q&A. Throughout the presentations, please feel free to throw your questions in there. At the end of the webinar, we will have plenty of time to answer all of those questions. We also have some questions that have come in from customers leading up to this, things that they were hoping that we would address. So we should have some great information, but please feel free to throw them in there. And if we don't answer it right away, don't worry, we will get to it towards the end. Before we dive into hearing from our speakers and understanding our solutions, let's talk about the challenges many organizations are facing with output management today. So first, scalability issues. Older infrastructure does not scale easily. I imagine many of you already know this, right? And managing it can slow innovation while driving up your costs. Second, disconnected systems. Many teams are juggling siloed tools and inconsistent data, which it leads to slow processes and inefficient resource use. I can't tell you how many times, whether in these webinars or out on the road shows, we hear this feedback. And third, a lack of end-to-end automation. Manual processes often result in errors, delays, and a lot of hand-holding just to get documents from point A to point B. We know that system admins and IT teams they're tired of putting out the fires. You know, when it comes to printing and output, it's a headache. So that's why today's session is focused on how a modern cloud-based solution can solve these pain points. And so to kick us off, I want to pass it over to Bailey. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Shannon, for highlighting some of those challenges that we know organizations face when it comes to output management. Now, I want to discuss with you guys how some of those challenges can be solved by adopting a cloud-native output management solution. Cloud-based output management enables a flexible, phased transition by supporting hybrid environments. It integrates seamlessly with on-prem infrastructure, allowing organizations to modernize without the need to rip and replace their existing environment, so that organizations can adopt the cloud at their own pace. And there's a couple of other points I want to highlight. Number one being cost. Organizations can save a lot of money by reducing infrastructure and just the time that it takes to maintain that infrastructure. A cloud-native approach helps organizations modernize while also maintaining security compliance. It's easy to scale, so as your business grows, you can have the solution scale with you without needing additional infrastructure. Organizations will get high availability for critical printing needs so that you can ensure business continuity. And then lastly, companies can simplify IT operations altogether by just consolidating print and output management into one system, eliminating disconnected systems. Now, Vasion offers a cloud-based output management solution that we refer to as output automation, or Vasion Output Automation. You might be wondering, what exactly is output automation? Well, it's a cloud-native solution that can intelligently route, deliver, and convert your documents without needing manual intervention. It, of course, unifies both end user print and output management or backend system printing into one interface with centralized control and automation. And it also eliminates manual steps that you might traditionally have needed in place when using a legacy output management system. Now let's talk about the key differences between a traditional output management system and Vasion output automation. First, there's a lot of manual processes when it comes to legacy systems, like having to use scripts to update printer settings, update drivers, and possibly push those updates to more than one server. If your company grows, it's not as easy to scale. You might have to implement new infrastructure or more infrastructure in order to scale to meet those needs. And then, of course, the burden that's placed on the teams that are managing these systems. They're having to do more manual things like version upgrades, possibly complex firewall configurations, using third-party tools to have high availability without an integrated way to do that, and implementing backup procedures. Also, we know there's significant downtime when it comes to having to do manual processes, and this is just due to the lack of the ability to automate different tasks. Whereas output automation has built-in high availability and redundancy to make sure that your print jobs keep flowing. We meet the highest security standards like ISO and SOC 2 Type 2. We're cloud native, which means less infrastructure and less time to maintain that infrastructure and saving on cost. And then you have a unified console. Like I mentioned, you've got end user print management as well as output management all in one place. And then we're easily scalable. If your company grows or your print needs change, we can help you. Now let's take a look at this diagram that outlines what a traditional output management system might look like. You have step one, where the source application generates the job. It hands it off to maybe one of 4 different servers that a team has to manage. Then the print job goes to the printer, and then a status is reported back to the source application. Now notice in step 3, you can only send the job to a printer. But what if you wanted the ability to take other actions? And that's where Vasion can help. So in this diagram, we've got, starting with the same source application, the print job is generated, and then it's handed off to our Vasion Output service client. Now, that service client can receive the job in a couple of different ways. We've got support for IPP, LPD, and then you can use a custom API to also send the job. With that print job, the Vasion Output service can also interrogate the metadata associated to it and the user information, and then use that to intelligently route the document to where it needs to be. And that's where we have orchestrated automation that comes into play. And there's a couple of different things that could happen here. A common use case that we see is the ability to send it to a completely different network. So you can use our cloud gateway to leverage the gap between 2 networks. You can use automation so that we can determine what the print job title is and maybe hold that print job and let it be securely released, or prevent it from printing at all if it contains sensitive information. We can start a workflow, send an email, or just send it straight to the printer. All of these scenarios describe ways that Vasion can meet your unique business needs. And then the final step is reporting a status back to the source application with very detailed information to see what exactly happened to the print job. Now that you've seen how Vasion Output handles document delivery from the beginning to the end, let's talk more about how we ensure that process stays reliable for you. One of the most important aspects of any output solution is high availability, and that's an area where Vasion truly stands out. Vasion Output is designed with built-in cloud architecture that ensures high availability and redundancy. It uses intelligent routing and failover mechanisms to maintain continuous service without manual intervention. Of course, we know availability is only part of the picture and that security and compliance is vital. Vasion Output is built with enterprise-grade security in mind. It keeps compliance standards like our ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2. It follows a zero trust architecture with end-to-end encryption, secure release, redaction capabilities, and strong access controls, Vasion ensures that your print workflows are protected truly from end to end. And then now let's talk about the bottom line. By shifting to a cloud-native model, Vasion significantly reduces the infrastructure costs and the burden of ongoing maintenance. There's no need for print servers, so you're not having to update those independently by using the scripts and doing the manual processes. So IT teams can get their time back. They can automate tasks like updating the print queues and configuring a rule so that if a job fails, we reroute it to a different printer. All of these things they can use to get their time back and focus on other areas of work. And then with reduced infrastructure comes the opportunity to simplify, and that's where Vasion shines. It brings all of your print activity into one console. By consolidating multiple tools into one console, IT team gains real-time visibility, monitoring, and full control over all print activity while enforcing consistent policies across both end user and enterprise systems. And then finally, let's look at growth. Whether you're adding users, printers, maybe you're acquiring new businesses and your locations are growing, Vasion Output scales effortlessly to meet those needs without increasing the complexity. And now I'll hand it over to Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks, Bailey. As Bailey just mentioned, there are a lot of benefits in consolidating output into the cloud. And by unifying by implementing Vasion Output, this unifies your front and your back end printing into a single cloud native solution that gives you full visibility into your environment as well as control. And so I'm going to take just a few minutes and dive a little bit deeper into the importance of that unification and the value that you can expect if you go down this route or look to implement like this. And so a single console for print and output is a lot easier to manage. So instead of having 3 or 4 or 5 different point solutions to manage different facets of the environment, you're able to manage everything through one single pane of glass that increases operational efficiency. And this also allows you to gather visibility into who is printing what across the entire enterprise. And as you're gathering that data, that allows you to make business-driven decisions based on that data for your print. And one common use case that we see frequently are companies come to us with an initiative to consolidate their print fleet. And so since we have full visibility, we're able to generate a list of, here's a list of printers that have not been printed to for X amount of months. And those are a great opportunity for those to be decommissioned and consolidated, a great outcome of cutting waste for businesses, right? Another use case that we see frequently are businesses that are trying to cut down on color printing and where that's not necessary. And again, since we have the visibility, we're able to identify where that color printing is happening and point out to the business, deliver that data, where they could take that information and cut down on that malicious or unnecessary color printing or cost savings. And on the note of cost savings, as you look to reduce vendors, that typically leads to better pricing terms and volume discounts because you have increased purchasing power. CIO.com did a study recently and found that 95% of CIOs have that initiative to consolidate vendors, or in the coming years will be focusing on that. And the main driver behind that is they want to be more strategic with fewer vendors because they realize the points as we're discussing now are benefit, as well as managing less relationships and less contracts that leads to less administrative work. And to bring this to life, we recently found that one of our print customers had a different point solution managing their backend environment. And so they had an on-prem legacy environment for or solution managing their backend, then a cloud native solution and us managing their front end. And after conversations, they realized that they were able to consolidate down into a single solution, and the cost savings alone was enough for them to want to move forward, let alone all the other bullet points that we've talked about. But in addition to that, they were able to eliminate overlap in support. They are able to provide training on one platform, not two. Again, driving efficiency. And also they were able to eliminate the on-prem infrastructure that backend solution required. And so as you peel back the onion on that, the details, it's layers deep as far as the benefits and the win for that business, but it also shows how Vasion can become a core solution for an enterprise. And from an integrations perspective, as Bailey had mentioned, we have already built integrations into the largest third-party systems like SAP, Epic, Cerner, and then beyond that, we have APIs that allow for other CRMs or custom-built systems to be able to integrate into our platform and offer the benefits that a unified print management solution can offer. And so, yeah, I've dived into the benefits. I'm going to turn it back over to Bailey, and we can get some eyes on the demo of the product.
All right, yeah, let me go ahead and get logged in here, and I'll show you just how easy it is to set up Vasion Output automation on one of your service clients. So once you get signed in, go to the print section. You're going to create a new service client by right-clicking on a folder. You can click the new button up here. Service client, you're going to fill in whatever name makes sense for you, and then the machine that you want to target. Once you have that done, it'll look like this, and then you'll have an output automation tab. Now, all you need to do here is fill in the domain name of that machine. If you're wanting to set up high availability and redundancy, you would need to attach a shared storage location so that more than one service client has access to the print job data. You can regionalize your data. So if you wanted to set up zones to regionalize East Coast versus West Coast, you can do that here. And then lastly, you have the ability to enable whichever service you want to run. So here I've got the API print service enabled. We also have the IPP service. And then at the bottom, we've got the LPD service. You can adjust your log level depending on your needs. Click save. And then now you would have the Vasion Output Automation Service Client up and running so that you can test printing jobs to it or sending jobs to it. Now in the output section, this is where the teams that are managing this side of printing have complete visibility and control over their print jobs. You can see here on the print job tab, this is all of the jobs that are being sent from the source application. You can see their status like completed, held, failed, or printing. You can also see the pages, the size, the printer name, the date and time of submission, the associated user, and then if it were part of a batch, you would have a link to that batch to view here, as well as the batch jobs tab where you can view the individual jobs in each batch. And then the printer section shows you the queue status of the actual queue from the moment the job leaves the Vasion Output Automation service and goes to the printer so that you can manage the jobs when they hit that point. You can redirect all jobs. Maybe if the printer is being maintained and you need to temporarily redirect to a different device, you can do that here. You can also pause all jobs. Now I want to point out this is manual, but you can set up automation so that maybe redirection or pausing the job happens automatically, and that's done in the workflow section. So going in here, you'll have your rules and routing tab where you can view previously defined rules using this filter. And you can also create new ones by clicking new workflow, create rules. And you're first going to select a trigger. So if this happens, then we'll take action. We can look for a failed job, a job that was received, a job that's completed, or if we held a job. In this example, I'll do a print job failed. You can give it a name, a description, and then next you're selecting the condition. So in my example, I'd probably want to be looking at a particular printer, and then if the job fails, take an action. But I do want to point out that there's other things that we can look for, such as text in the print job title. So if it's a W-2 form, maybe we're going to prevent that from being printed. You can look for a specific user. You can look for a user not found. So if it's a system generated job instead of a user generated job. The number of pages. So if someone's printing a 500-page document, maybe we send that to a copier rather than a desktop printer. The time of day and then type of document. If it's a JPEG or a PNG, maybe it goes to a different printer as opposed to a PDF. And then in my example, I selected printer, so I'll just go through and select whichever one I want to look at, and then the action. So in my example, I'm going to redirect the print job to a different printer. But you could also take other actions. You could not print the job. You could assign it to a different user account, maybe in case of secure release, if someone else needs to pick up the job, different from whoever sent it. You can redirect the job to a random printer in a pool of printers. You could redirect it or send it to more than one printer. And then you can also set a paper tray, and this eliminates the need for you to have multiple different queues. If the print job just needs to be printed to a different tray, you can set up a rule for that. Now, in my example, I sent it to a different print job, so I can also send a redirection notification email to the user that sent the job so that they know where it went. Go ahead and click save, and then you'll be able to see it on this page here at the bottom. All right, now I'm going to hand it over to Gabby.
All right. So now that we've seen the product in action and how it can be used as far as features and functions, and we've also heard about what it could do for an organization, I wanted to spend a little time on the success stories that we have and the things that we've done for organizations in the past. Part of my job as a customer success manager is to take it from, a great, exciting new product to being actually adopted and implemented. And a lot of times that means that we have to be able to explain to the organization what it truly means for the organization. And Bailey, I'm sorry, I've lost control of the slides. So I'm just going to scoot that forward. Okay, thank you. All right. So the first customer example that we have had to do with, in this case, it was in the healthcare industry, but this can be applicable to really any industry where our IT teams are responsible for answering some questions. And many times it's not easy to find those answers without going to multiple systems. And like Kevin and Bailey mentioned, we're really looking at how do we get all this information into a single place so that we can give the best answer. And for us with this customer, our challenge was fleet planning. And in this case, we were actually acquiring other businesses and trying to merge them into a single space and use our resources as efficiently as possible. And that's a pretty common case, no matter which industry you're in, that things are either coming and going or you're being asked, how do we do this in the best possible way? And as an IT manager, right now you may have to go to your server team to find out where backend printing is at and what printers are being used on that side. Where if you go to the front end, you may have access to that with your print admin team, but you have to make sure it's pulled at the same time for the same amount of time. And you want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. And so one of the benefits of combining these siloed systems is being able to have better answers when you're asked, hey, what printers are being used? Are they being distributed correctly? And for us with fleet planning, it also means what printers should we buy in the future? Is there space for us to get rid of some of these printers? And so when those answers are easily available to you, we can now eliminate some of that time that it takes to make better plans. And this is a lot of times future facing. It's looking more than 6 months into the future when we look at some of the, I would say, maybe impacts of COVID, where a lot of printers became individualized. And now we want to move to an MFD. And we want to make sure that the MFDs are distributed, or multi-function devices are distributed into the right places. There may be places where we print 10 times as much as other locations, and we need to know what those are. But if we have blind spots, which we do find that happens when you have siloed systems, right? Where we may pick up all of the deployments and we may have all the printers that you have in your fleet. We may not have all the activity if it's being sent by your ERP or EHR. And so those are things that we've had to come in and solve for in order to make better business decisions. And if there is one thing that we can definitely count on, is that we have to explain what impact this has to an organization. And so when we were able to put output into the system and combine all the reporting and being able to now see both front end and back end printing, we were able to not only look at which printers could be eliminated or combined, and also understand how usage was being done across the whole fleet, we were also able to now take advantage of things like billbacks and being able to appropriately allocate budgets to departments. We didn't just have to have a printing bucket where everyone's printing was all in one place. We could actually say there are departments that are printing more than others. We can actually see that activity. We can narrow it down. We can filter it out. So we were able to take not only the future facing decision making, but also who should be charged for it, who should be responsible for that. And no matter your industry, the better that you can understand who's spending those dollars and how you can more efficiently allocate them, or even pull them back if you need to. I know that Kevin mentioned, not only color printing, but being able to understand what is happening within your fleet. Like, those are answers that are they're going to become more valuable to your organization. So with that in mind, I wanted to share just one more story of our customers, because Vasion Output can have a very strong impact to you when you look at being able to do things on the daily, being able to not only see that fleet planning for the future, but also IT is defined by how little impact you make to people's daily lives. Like, the less they see you, the better you're doing your job. And so with that in mind, we wanted to tackle some of what we could do proactively. So for that, we wanted to look at a measurement, a metric that was very common in IT. No matter your industry, you're pretty much labeled by how many IT tickets you receive. And so in order to tackle that number, we wanted to use output to reduce, in this case, again, I work in healthcare, but it can be applicable to any space. We wanted to lower the amount of time that someone was spending making a ticket and increase the amount of time that we could spend with the end user, or the patient in this case, without having to involve IT. And for IT, this meant that they had to be really aware of what was going on throughout the organization, but it also meant that they had to be proactive in things that they knew were going to happen. And some things that we can count on are maintenance, things going down, and someone being upset about it. So we wanted to address that beforehand by doing some of the things that Bailey mentioned earlier, which was eliminating downtime by knowing that if one printer went down and there was one next to it, we could automatically set a rule. If that failed, let's move it over to the printer right next to it. Let's not have that person have to push print twice. And in cases like an ER, or an emergency urgent care center, all those seconds can mean someone's life. And so anything that we can do to make that easier for them, we want to do. So we've set up rules around making sure that you can immediately receive a notice that you are now receiving your print job in the printer next to it if that one's down. That alert would also trigger someone to come out and look at the printer from the IT side. So you wouldn't need to send in a ticket additionally to that. They would know we need to come and address this printer, but also that person's already got the print job that they needed to take care of that patient or that end user. So we are eliminating the need for someone to put in not only one ticket that it's not working, but 2 tickets to fix the problem. So we wanted to make sure that we were really making it easy for others to do their jobs, which in the end always makes IT look better. And then in addition, as a layered part of that, was we wanted to protect information. We wanted to make sure that just because we were moving things over, we were still taking care to protect that PII or PHI, or just personal information, from being printed in a place it shouldn't be. And so we took advantage of the other example that Bailey showed us, which was being able to identify information by the name of the document. So HR was able to not only have to watch for things being printed, but they were able to redirect. If there was a form like a W-2 that was going to be printed out and it accidentally got selected to the wrong printer, it would automatically reroute to the HR printer that was in a more secure location. And in order to pick that up, they would be able to only go to this secured location. So it allowed some guardrails. It allowed them to remove some risk. And, there is, of course, always a talk about security in all industries right now to make sure that information stays safe, that people are able to access what they need, but not in a place where we put unnecessary risk out there. And so being able to add those guardrails, redirect, and lower those ticket counts was really a place where we could make an ROI, but also have our IT team really shine. So with those things in mind, having now heard what our customers have been through, we want to talk a little bit about the implementation. So I'm going to pass this back over to Bailey so that she can finish up that conversation.
All right, thank you, Gabby. Yeah, so this kind of outlines a couple of things that we know you need to consider if you're wanting to implement a cloud-based solution like Vasion Output Automation. So number one, just reviewing your current print and output systems. How many printers do you have? What's your print job? How many print jobs are you doing a day? Just kind of what that looks like. Next, we have identifying connections that are available within your EHR, ERP, or CRM systems. So I mentioned we have 3 connectors. We can receive the job through IPP, LPD, or using a custom API. So just consider those when you're looking at the options that your system currently supports. Next, we have identifying compliance and security gaps that we might be able to help you accomplish. And then identifying all team members needed to not only set up a solution like this, but also to test it. That's really important to make sure you have all parties involved to give you the proper access to, as far as networking goes, understanding what's moving where, security teams involved, so that they can get a good idea of what's going to happen and who's going to be needed for what step. And then lastly, we do offer resources to help you in that transition. We have dedicated customer success managers like Gabby, who you can reach out to get a demo. Someone like myself on the call who's more technical and can help you set things up and answer your questions. We have migration checklists and onboarding guides to help you know what's going to be expected, what teams you'll need to involve based on that information. And then technical assistance from a solutions engineer like myself to help you with a proof of concept if you're wanting to test it. And then lastly, access to Vasion support. We have an email, phone support, and a ticket that you can submit through your console directly. And if you're wanting to get a demo already, go ahead and click that link and you can sign up.
Thank you to our speakers. This has just been fantastic. And we've got some questions that have been rolling in throughout the presentation. So let's dive into those. First one here, for healthcare companies that deal with EMR systems, how does this solution help ensure secure document delivery?
Yeah, so I can touch on that one. Of course, we have end-to-end encryption, making sure that that data is not just going through HTTPS or whatever unencrypted. And then at the moment it's going to be printed, we can make sure that it's getting into the hands of the proper individual by using secure release. So whoever sent the job, either they're going to be the person that releases it, or if you set up a rule to hand it off to someone else, it would be that individual. So just making sure that from end to end it's encrypted, and then whoever actually gets that physical piece of paper is the intended person.
Thank you, Bailey. All right, the next one. How long does a typical implementation take, and what support do customers get during the process?
Shannon, I could take that one. It's a great question. And as Bailey had touched on the implementation process, from a timeline perspective, I typically see it take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to get things up and going. And it does come down to how complex the environment is, if you have a third-party system already in place that you're migrating from. So it can be a little complex, nuanced answer, but relatively quick. But as far as support goes, you've got people like Bailey, a systems engineer, that will help you along the way, that have been down that road multiple times. So they're a great guide along that process. And we've got great documentation, working with some of the largest like SAP, Cerner, Epic, to assist you along the way. So
excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, next, let's see. Can Vasion Output coexist with our existing print infrastructure while we transition to the cloud?
So I can take that one. Yes, Vasion Output can run alongside your current print environment so that you can test it, so that you don't disrupt your critical production printing right now. We are cloud native, so you don't have to worry about using existing hardware or resources to set that up. And you are also we support any network printers, so you don't have to worry about purchasing compatible devices. We can make it very easy for you to try it out and then move over when you're ready.
Perfect. Thanks, Gabby. Okay, next one. In our current environment, we have multiple on-prem service clients. I assume output automation eliminates those.
Yeah, I can answer this one. Of course, the goal is to simplify, right? We want to help you eliminate as much infrastructure as you can. In order to route that job appropriately to your on-prem devices, we can't eliminate all of that infrastructure. The goal here is to eliminate the manual processes like updating print queues across all of those servers. So we can help you manage all of that from the cloud. And then the agent that we're installing on those servers will actually automatically update those settings so that you don't even have to touch those devices. So the goal is really simplifying. Coming in our spring launch, we will have the option for you to use our API cloud service. So if this source application is able to send the job using the IPP protocol or a custom API, we can actually host the Vasion Output service for you in our cloud, so you wouldn't even have to worry about the infrastructure there.
Next one, can a print job automatically create a digital copy at the same time so the physical copy can be handed over to the client, but at the same time, we have a digital copy of said print job?
Yeah, I can take that one too. That is possible. So in the diagram that I kind of went over, you see you've got the option to send it directly to the printer. There is also the option so that you could send it to a cloud storage location so that you have that digital copy. You could also create a workflow so that that same document, maybe if it's needed digitally to, I don't know, for a signature, like a digital signature, if that's something you wanted to do with it, we can also help you there.
All right. Next one. These are great questions, by the way. We really appreciate sending these in. So the next one, could you provide some information on how Vasion Output will work in a Windows 11 environment with Windows Protected Print mode enabled and the use of PSAs to support print features instead of the current method of the standard print driver controlling print settings?
I can take that one. So the nice thing about Vasion Output specifically is that we don't use drivers. We're actually able to convert that document to a format that you need. Let's say you need to go from PDF to a ZPL formatted document for your label printers. We can do that on the back end. And all you do is select a drop down of which language you want us to translate it to without having to upload and maintain driver updates.
All right. I am with an MSP VAR. Do you have an on-ramp for managed print solution providers to add Vasion to our solution portfolio?
I could take that one, Shannon. You should be able to have access to that as an MSP. I'd encourage you to get your information, but I can encourage you to touch base with your channel account manager. If not, then we can have that conversation and ensure that you're up and going. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. All right. How would secure release work in a zero trust environment?
I can answer that one. So in a zero trust environment, how we're able to maintain that when it comes to secure release is whoever's sending that print job, we're able to capture the user information when we receive that job, so we know who sent it. And then before that's actually printed out physically at the printer, that individual has to badge in. They have to type in a user ID and a PIN code, or if it's available to use a mobile device in your environment, they can actually scan a QR code that with a PrinterLogic app that they would have signed into. So in all cases, we're verifying who that user is and then releasing it based on that.
Fantastic. These have been fantastic questions. You'll have just a few more minutes. If you think of anything else, go ahead and submit it. But as we are coming to the end here, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. If I could, Bailey, if I could have you advance to just our last slide here for me, then we've got, we got to throw up the website for everybody to check out, vasion.com/output-automation. You're going to find some great information here. I will let you know we have an entirely revamped Vasion.com website with a tremendous amount of information on all of our products and offerings. and a ton of information there. So please visit that website. Reach out to your customer success manager, your account manager, channel account manager if you're on the partner side, and we are here to help. Looks like we're getting one last question in. Can you share who would be our channel manager in Texas? I imagine we can get that information to you, and we'll find that out, and we'll get that answer over to you. So, all right, panelists, any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Thank you everyone for your time today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
If there's any curiosity around this, I encourage you to reach out to your CS, customer success manager, continue the conversation, and we'll see you there. Appreciate it.
All right. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Vasion webinar. Take care.